In my opinion, it is very important to have in mind two main goals. First, to implement a data-driven decision making and focus on human-machine collaboration. To implement a data-driven decision making in the context of future manufacturing, we have a lot of goals that we need to perceive. Leverage big data analytics to gain insights into production processes, customer preferences, and market trends. Use digital twins to create virtual replicas of physical assets, allowing for simulation and optimization of manufacturing processes. And implement real-time monitoring systems to track performance metrics and respond quickly to issues. In terms of human-machine collaboration, we need to provide continuous training programs to upskill our operators to be able to interact effectively with advanced technologies. But we also need to develop intuitive interfaces that make it easy for workers to control and interact with machines. By taking these steps, manufacturers can effectively transition to Industry 5.0, so important to the competitive edge in the European market, leveraging advanced technologies and human creativity to create more efficient, personalized, and sustainable production processes.
This is a very difficult question because we are confronted with a lot of changes in our surroundings. The European market, taking from a perspective of demographics, is facing society that is getting older, but also the buying power is getting worse. The awareness about environmental pressure is rising. So in the end, because of environmental awareness and financial constraints, people are tending to buy less. People are questioning certain living models. And as a result of this, for many products, Europe is not the main market anymore in the world. So the first question is, where do these products come from? And when they are produced by manufacturers in Europe, do we have alternatives? If part of these products come from Asia, the Americas, or other parts of the world at competitive prices, we can use temporarily such instruments as CBAM, so the let's say environmental tax at the borders in Europe, to prevent from certain good transfers from outside of Europe to Europe, but it's only partly. Now the big debate is about Chinese cars. Should they be allowed or not? And if yes, should there be any tax additionally raised? But it's not the only product, it's just an example. And so with the shrinking market and diminishing buying power of Europeans, we are in a situation where we have to think about our economy in a perspective of restructuring, reorganization, consolidation, regional competence centers, strong consolidated organizations on the one hand, and on the other hand, the small and medium-sized companies that are flexible, can anticipate very quickly on local demand, but in different forms, shapes, and business models than they have today. And this is a very difficult question and approach because certain requirements set by the European Commission in directives, in regulations, require for additional costs and engagement of personnel that are not directly viable economically from the side of small and medium-sized companies to engage in additional costs or personnel. And often they don't have this kind of personnel. Even if we say today that, okay, but several regulations do not apply to small and medium-sized companies, only to large companies. But we see that within supply chains, within new value chains, these large companies automatically require the same standards to their suppliers. And so these suppliers also to their suppliers. So in the end, small and medium-sized companies are somehow also obliged to follow new standards. When we talk about materials and the availability of materials, this will be a major challenge for Europe because European countries, companies have very little impact on the places in the world where the main resources and strategic materials are, let's say, produced, created, and delivered to Europe. That's also why the European Commission, Parliament, and the countries are focusing on the economic model where we will have as much as possible recovered, reused, and so on, and internally recovered. This will be a difficult discussion and process. We are currently working in a consortium where we verify for packaging this kind of changes. And for instance, for polypropylene, we identified more than 200 diverse kinds of polypropylene for just several kinds of packaging. So when we talk about reuse and recycling, it also means a large debate in Europe for what concerns standardization of material applications, so to make recyclability a fact and not just an option. Again, when we talk about new energy sources and we take a look at the changes proposed in terms of the hydrogen economy and the impact of the hydrogen economy on certain regions, countries, then we see that for several countries in Europe, this will be a challenge in terms of access to green hydrogen. And what we have seen is also that certain branches will be in very difficult situations when they don't have easy access to green hydrogen, but because of several legal or let's say because of legislation on European level, they will have to integrate green hydrogen in their processes. And as such, this will also include a shift of economic activities throughout Europe. What we also see for Central Europe is that labor costs go up, energy costs are high, and also for countries in the southern part of Europe, so where these business models are based on very long tradition of industrial activities in Italy and Spain, and where these business models have to be reorganized, reconfigured. So the question is if the young generation will be open to restructure all these old business models and factories, or that we will be witnessing the closure of a lot of factories working on traditional models by 2030. And then the question is if they will be replaced by new, flexible, modern companies producing similar products, but according to new business models, or just that this part of economy in Europe will disappear and we will become, in, let's say, more than 60% reliant in these areas of products and countries outside of Europe. The answer on the question would be easier when we were in 2017, because the world was looking more comprehensible. Now, when we see on the geopolitical level that Russia is cooperating with China, with Iran, with North Korea, India is still doubting if it would join, because yes, the relation between China and India is not really in good shape. But anyway, Russia is trying to engage India, especially for gas delivery. So in these terms, these are the countries that have main resources that also in Africa are controlling lots of natural resources. So in these terms, Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea have to define their new relationships, business models, but also geopolitical defense models in order to create predictable stability for economic purposes. Because the situation in which we are now leads to a situation where small and medium-sized enterprises are not eager to invest because the investment risk, the risk of failure is too high. Certain investments are taken because of the fact that they are required by law. It's a 0-1 issue of being in the game or not. But for what concerns other investments, we see that certain projects are being delayed because of the situation in the world.